Well, listen, our next guest up from the book Polarized. Let's give a late night welcome for Joseph and Kevin Deblasi. What's up, fellas? How you doing? What's going on, Kevin?
Thanks for having us.
How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great, Johnny.
Finally got started.
All right, we're all set.
You guys look like the Blues Brothers.
They usually tell us we look like the Putz Brothers, but so we'll take the Blues Brothers.
Thank you guys for coming. Now, your new book, Polarized: Sex, Lies, and Family Betrayal. This book is off the hook.
You don't have to tell us. We lived it, Johnny.
This is really cool. What inspired you to write this?
Okay, well, I took to writing this about 12 years ago after Joe had a couple of tryouts with some professional sports teams, and the papers decided to make more of a joke of Joe, who happens to have bipolar disorder.
Okay.
And the story shouldn't have been told in that light, that Joe, when he went down to Mets camp, should be on the fantasy team or he's going to be playing for the prison team. He's got bipolar disorder. This is a serious mental illness. And the papers didn't just get the story right. They missed the story. The story isn't trying out for the Mets, trying out for the Jets. The story is what triggered Joe's bipolar disorder. And do we ever have a story? And I'll let Joe start to tell it, because he's the protagonist. I'm the ghostwriter. I'm an attorney, and I'm his brother. And we're out to really tackle some serious issues, sexual abuse of children and the perception of mental illness. However, nothing ever gets done. We don't see anything getting done. And we are going to go about it a little different. We have an incredibly crazy story, and we are just going to let it all hang out. As Joe said on a couple of radio shows, if you're going to write a book, you don't pussyfoot around it. So we're here to tell a tell-all and let it rip.
Yeah. So you ready to start this thing?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you know, you make it funny, but you're really serious about this too. So, like your mom and your dad, they weren't your normal Carol and Mike Brady,
No,
right?
no, far from that.
No, you talk about your father.
Okay, my father's a medical doctor here on Staten Island. We believe he's still practicing, and I say we believe because we've been estranged from him for more than 20 years.
Right.
Now, at the age, I was 3, Kevin was 1, we have a middle brother was 2. My parents got divorced. So divorce was back, this was in the early 70s, wasn't very common, especially in Italians.
Yeah.
Very, very rare.
Definitely.
So, so that was the first thing that could have played into when I was 20 years old. I finally had a breakdown, but I'm just going to give you a brief history of my childhood. So at the age of 3, my parents got divorced. At the age of 9 and a half, going on 10, my father, who wasn't the custodial parent, decided that he wanted to take me away from my mother. So staged a kidnapping. And it wasn't like I didn't know the kidnapping was going on. I had a fake runaway. My grandfather was involved. We had to tell my mother that I got into a cab, and then I had to go for about 8 months lying to judges. My father made me tell all lies about my mother, that she was unfit. All things the lawyers told him to say, because that's how you get custody back then, and probably even still today. It's very rare that a father would get custody of a child. So he got custody of me, and then a couple of years after that, well, a couple of years before that, he got remarried. So then a couple of years after he got custody of me, my stepmother sexually abused me.
Yeah,
so
I read about that in the book.
So in a period of divorce, I had the terrible custody battle, and then I had the sexual abuse. So then when I was in college, I was a binge drinker. I started drinking like crazy. I'd done really well in high school, but in college I wasn't studying. I wasn't doing well. And then finally I had a major breakdown. I was suicidal. And then I had a manic episode and ended up in Staten Island University Hospital. I was inpatient there for about 8 weeks. And I started on medication. Now, this was 25 years ago, right around this time of year. And 25 years later, I'm still on medication. I've had 60 electric shock treatments, because early on I never responded to antidepressants. But now, finally, I do, so I don't get ECT anymore. But I've had over 20 hospitalizations. I've had a pretty rough time with the bipolar disorder. If anyone's confused, back then it was called manic depression, but it's basically the same thing. Now it's called bipolar disorder. 20, 25 years ago, it was called manic depression.
Wow.
And then, like we said in the stories, I've had been arrested trying to try out for the Mets and these manic highs and the Jets, but.
Yeah, you know, speaking of the Jets, I'm the VP of Public Relations for my firm.
Okay.
And you got Jay Horowitz, who's the VP of the Mets,
Right.
in a headlock. What did he do?
what is that about?
I want to make sure that I don't do what he did, because I don't
No,
want
no,
to
no.
end up in the
First of all,
You're okay. I'm here.
First
I'm
of
not
all,
only his attorney.
First of all, I didn't get Jay. It's a misconception. I don't know where it started. I yelled at Jay Horowitz. He was behind the desk like him, not as fancy as this, but I was screaming, bouncing. I did not put Jay Horowitz in a headlock, but I did yell at him.
You put him in a vice grip.
No, I didn't. I didn't lay hands on Jay Horowitz, but there's Sid Rosenberg, who's a pretty famous sportscaster, and he asked me the same question. I did not touch Jay Horowitz, but I did yell at him and I verbally abused him. So it wasn't like I was an angel. But 5 minutes later, the cops came and they arrested me anyhow.
I was out of the country at the time. Joe's been arrested twice. Let me just go on the record. I have my aunt here handing out business cards. I was out of the country both times Joe was arrested. And I'm like Tommy Hagen from The Godfather. I have a very specialized practice. I deal with one client, my brother Joe. And the only fee that he gives me is he lets me live in these manic states, because there's been some roller coasters. And Johnny, back to why we wrote this book. I'm an attorney. My mother's very educated. She had Joe taken from him, okay? A mother had lost her child to a doctor, but he wasn't just a doctor in Staten Island. Our last name's Deblasi. We're from Canarsie. Our grandfather, Frank Deblasi, growing up, we were told he worked in the garment district, and he did some construction. My grandfather couldn't even unravel the string from a cannoli, okay? Grandpa Frank was connected. And when my father couldn't get into medical school, we know from my mother that they used Grandpa Frank's connections to get my father, Joseph Deblasi, still practices on Staten Island, into medical school. And that really starts this whole mess, because when my father decides to leave 3 beautiful babies in diapers in 1971, I'm 10 months, Joe's 3, my brother Steve is 2. We were just saying, this guy, he's a beautiful individual. He's been through hell and back, but doesn't he look great?
Yeah.
Doesn't he look great? He's irresistible. And unfortunately, our stepmother, Rita Deblasi, a former nurse, thought he was irresistible as well. When he was 12 years old, she happened to start something up with him. And Johnny, I will let people read the book, but I think you're onto something here.
I don't read a lot, but when I read this, I read through the whole thing in a couple of nights. It was really amazing. And those are some strong accusations that you're saying there. If that's true, you know.
It's all true. Both of us have children. I'm a New York State attorney, practicing 16 years. Why would we make this up? We wish the story wasn't true. People tell us, you guys are great writers. No, we're not great writers. Our father made this crazy story, and we're in a unique position. We want to pass laws eliminating statutes of limitation, and we're able to. We have a strong family that took Joe in, okay? And I think you wanted to ask me
I
about
can
the
never
last
imagine
chapter.
what you guys went through. 'Cause I came from a good Italian family, and it just, you know, my heart goes out to you. And Joe, you look great.
Thank
you. Know
you.
what I mean? Before we go, the ultimate load. It's chapter 18. Why don't you talk about that?
This is really the climax of the book. This is the Immaculate Load, and this is my mother's mother after 30 years of my father just literally pissing on his daughter and grandchildren. She comes to his office and confronts him, and she says to him, "You're going to have to help now, or we're going to expose you." And he says, "Well, why do I got to help?" So my grandmother says, "What happened with your wife and my grandson?" Okay, this man has a prescription
that's
pad.
crazy.
Some of you out there might have him as your physician if you're in Staten Island. This is not a good situation. This is going to get bigger. We'll go on Howard Stern. We'll go on Jimmy
cousin.
Kimmel. We will go anywhere. We're not going to stop until this is a bestseller. It will be a bestseller because we're not going to stop, or my father's going to have us killed, and then it will become a bestseller.
Listen, as long as they don't shoot you over here.
Thanks, Johnny. Spoken like a true Italian.
I'm only teasing. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for coming. Where can people find you guys? On Facebook, Twitter?
Absolutely. We're on Facebook, Polarized, Kevin Deblasi, Joe Deblasi. We have Sid Rosenberg's producer, fell in love with our story. Kevin Canessa, he is our publicist now. You can get in touch with him. We will go anywhere until we get justice for Joe and my grandparents and my mother.
Well, listen, I wish you guys all the best. Once you become a bestseller, make it a best movie. Joe and Kevin Deblasi, everybody.
Thank you, Johnny.
Good to see you
Appreciate
guys.
having us on, Johnny. Thank you.
Wish them the best. For my next guest up, we're going to liven up the party here. You see them on Fox 5 City Rants. It's my honor to have her on the show. Let's give a late night welcome. Make some noise for Joanne from Bensonhurst. What's going on, baby?
I want to sit on your chair.
What's going on?
Good to meet you.
How you doing? Go have a seat over there and clip yourself
Ooh,
before you get clipped.
I usually get clipped. I don't clip myself.